Hey guys, did you know Axifaction streams on Twitch? He goes over card leaks and plays Slay the Spire to prepare for Axie Infinity Origins. I don't care. All I want to do is watch a Reflectile get hit by a beast going full damage mode. That's all I care about.
But Axie Infinity Origins is inspired by Slay the Spire. A lot of the status effects are directly translatable, like vulnerable and weak and retain too.
Yeah, and he always takes time to answer the questions from the chat too. If they have any questions, he'll do research on the spot. You should check it out. There's a link in the description below. Hello Axifaction, welcome back. Sky Mavis has blessed us with the mouth card leaks, so we're going to get right into that. But first, just a quick word of caution. It's important to understand that each of these card leaks are still undergoing balancing, meaning by the time Origin is actually launched, some of these cards could have very different effects. For example, about a month ago, Sky Mavis showed us some of the Beast card leaks, and in that leak, we got a sneak peek at the card Confident. But if we compare that to the card they leaked just the other day, then you'll notice they've already started implementing some changes. And that is just from the internal testing from Sky Mavis. So imagine how much more it could change during the next month or even during the alpha test period. All this to say, it is still very risky at this point to go out and make purchases based on speculation. But that's not going to stop us from having fun, so let's get right into it. And to start us off, let's look at the Aqua cards. Now the first one I want to talk about is Piranha, because it's very similar to Jaguar, which we talked about in our last video. Now we spent some time speculating on what the status effect for Bleed could do, but since then we've actually got confirmation on what the status effect does. So Bleed will not damage the Axie at the end of the opponent's turn like we previously thought. Instead, Bleed will damage the Axie anytime that Axie with Bleed plays a card. Now, no possible combos come to mind just of yet, but in a 1v1 scenario, Bleed seems like it could be very powerful. Next up we have Lamb, which deals 65 base damage, but provides 20 extra damage if the Axie is above 75% health. This screams synergy with double Anemone, because as you begin to draw into those Anemones, you'll heal up and be more likely to get that bonus damage. But there's another combo with Anemone that I think might be even better, and this one involves a Beast card. So let's go ahead and look at the Mouth Beast card leaks. And the card I'm referring to is actually Goda, right next to me. Aside from the 60 points of raw damage, Goda will also shuffle a Void into your opponent's discard pile. Now, what does this mean? Well, Void is actually another card from Slay the Spire, and what it does is destroy one of your energy when you draw into it. So with this in mind, it seems like Goda is really trying to maintain the same spirit it has in Battles V2, but instead of your opponent losing that energy immediately, the Void will be shuffled into their discard pile, and you'll have to wait for that discard pile to be cycled back through the deck, and then a random turn in the future when they draw into that Void, not only is it going to waste one of their card draws, but they'll lose an energy at the same time. But how is this good with double Anemone? Well, the specific combination I'm referring to looks something like this. This is the Anemone I just picked up. It's double Anemone, double Nemo, Goda, and Telescope. Let's talk about why. So Telescope and Nemo are simple. They're going to allow you to cycle through your deck more and give you a better sense of consistency throughout the game. And Goda, as we talked about before, is going to hinder your opponent's ability to draw cards and have the energy output he needs. But the true beauty about this combination is the fact that all of these cards, aside from Anemone, are banish cards. Meaning, once you start to get into the late game and all of these cards are banished one by one, the only cards remaining in your deck from that Axie are going to be Anemones. So if you play this double Anemone Goda Aqua on the back lane and get into that 1v1 scenario, then you are guaranteed to draw into all 4 Anemones, healing for 80 HP every single turn. This just seems absolutely broken. But there are a few caveats to keep in mind with this build. First off, we still don't know what kind of damage output is possible in V3, and it could be that 80 health healed every turn just isn't enough to stay alive. Secondly, this combo also hinges upon whether or not we continue to have 2 of each card in our deck. And while I believe this is the case, it still has yet to be confirmed. And finally, we still haven't seen the card text for the Nemo ear or the Anemone horn. So there's still a certain level of reasonable doubt on whether or not the Nemo tail and the Nemo ear both have the same effect. but considering we just saw our second Nutcracker card, I think it's pretty likely that they will be. Alright, next up, let's look at Sirius on the far left. Sirius deals a whopping 90 damage. Now the only downside is you have to discard a card from your hand, but honestly that doesn't seem that much of a downside because you have to discard your hand at the end of every turn anyways. But not only that, in many of the other card games I've played, it's very common to have cards that have a secondary effect if they're discarded from your hand, like this one here. Feel free to pause if you need to. So Sirius already looks amazing, but if we start to see other discard combos like that enter Axie Infinity, this might be one of the best cards in the game. Alright, next up, let's check out Square Teeth, and we're gonna do our best to ignore the abomination to the left of it. But this little cutie pie, on the other hand, has some really interesting implications, and it's because of its card text. So, for 0 energy, Square Teeth will deal 25 damage, and it'll deal additional damage equal to the amount of shield your Axie currently has. So you might be thinking, this is too good to be true, right? You just play a bunch of shield cards on one Axie, then for 0 energy, you could deal up to 200 damage. Well, not exactly, because if you look here, it actually only gets the bonus damage if initial, meaning if it's the first card you play that turn. But that has some very interesting implications, because that means there will be situations where before you even play a single card, there will already be shield on that Axie. The way I see it, there are 2 ways this can happen. First off, it could be that shield no longer goes away at the end of each turn. It could be carried into the next round, and you could continue to stack that shield if it wasn't broken. Or this phenomenon could be explained through runes. Remember, where charms are wearables that enhance an Axie's inherent abilities, runes will provide new passive powers. I could very easily imagine a rune that provides you 20 extra shield at the beginning of each turn, or possibly a rune that provides you the ability to retain that shield throughout your turns. There are still so many mysteries surrounding this, and no matter how many back alley AXS deals we do, there are some mysteries that will only be solved once Origin finally launches. Next up, we have the bird cards. Now, Little Owl is very interesting because it's such a stark difference from what it used to do in Battles V2. In fact, now, Little Owl has a lot more resemblance to Nutcracker than any bird card we know of. Now, I'm sure most of you are aware that Little Owl isn't just a mouth part, it's an eye part as well. So, unlike beasts, which have 3 Nutcracker parts, birds only have 2 Little Owl parts, but what I find really interesting is that they also have an ear called Owl, without the little. And if you look at those owl ears, then you'll notice that they are the exact same ears that are shown on the card art for Little Owl here. So whether or not there is really synergy in those ears is yet to be seen, but it's certainly something to keep in mind. Now, next on the list is Kotaro. Kotaro is very interesting, and it seems much more balanced than it is in the current game we play, because its effect is now somewhat randomized. It deals 30 damage to 2 random enemies, and if the enemies it hits are different creatures, then you get an energy back in return. So in the early game, your likelihood of hitting 2 different Axies is fairly high, because your enemy will have 3 Axies. But once you kill off that first Axie, your likelihood drops down to about 50%, and once it's a 1v1 scenario, you have a 0 chance of getting that energy back. But those percentages begin to drastically increase if you are facing an enemy using the Zoo strat. So while Kotaro may not be the best all-purpose meta card out there, it could be a very strong counter, especially in tournament play. Now, we also have these 4 heal cards here, and what's important to pay attention to is that the amount healed is not static. The amount healed is a percentage based on the damage dealt. And with that percentage currently sitting around 50%, just the standard card would only heal you about 30 health. But if you're able to provide that card more damage output, say with Cuckoo or Sponge, then you could potentially be healing for much, much more. And last but not least, I wanted to talk about Watering Can. Watering Can will provide 60 shield to any target you choose, and next turn, when that target is attacked, you will receive a pure water. Now, I bring this up because I've had a lot of questions about what pure water could be. And for this, we need to look back to Slay the Spire. Now, in Slay the Spire, pure water is a power-up that provides you 1 extra energy card at the beginning of each combat. So, my best guess is that pure water will be another energy coin card, something very similar to what you see right here. And that makes sense, right? I mean, it would allow it to maintain the same spirit as Watering Can has in Battles V2. It can't work the same way it does in V2 because energy won't carry over into the next round. So adding this pure water to your hand in the next turn is the alternative. And if I'm correct, I'm gonna guess that that coin card will have Retain so that you can choose to get that energy when you need it. Otherwise, there'd be no point in giving you an energy card as opposed to just giving you an energy. By the way, everybody, the official Metat8 podcast is live. This last episode was with Seb, an ex-professional Magic the Gathering player. His experience in traditional card games gives him a unique perspective in what card games need to last long term. Does Axie Infinity Origin have what it takes? Well, you're gonna have to watch it to find out. There's a link in the description. I'll see you there. Thanks.